Welcome everybody to today's webinar. I'm going to be talking to you about the e-Power auction and how you can use it as a generator to get the best price for your power. My name's Gaynor Hartnell. I was formerly the Chief Executive of the Renewable Energy Association, and I am now working with the REA again on biogas matters. So, an overview of today's webinar. I'll be giving you a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll be taking a couple of shots looking at the auction live in progress. I'll then show you where to find things on the e-Power website and how to become a member of the REA. And we also have a question and answer session with Stuart Stevens. Stuart Stevens is the commercial director of e-Power, and he is actually tuned in and can answer questions individually as they are placed. And you place a question by typing in the question box. And if he feels that any are worth talking through at the end of this webinar, he will then take us through those questions. You'll be sent a link so that you can watch the whole webinar again afterwards at your leisure, or share it with your colleagues, and you will also be sent a PDF of these PowerPoint slides. Right, so what is e-Power? e-Power is an online auction for selling renewable energy on short-term contracts. These are 6 or 12-month contracts. Suppliers participating in this auction bid their best prices for power purchase agreements. And the auction is mostly for power to be generated from the 1st of October onwards for either 6 or 12 months. But as a generator, you can specify your start date for your project. There are 2 main e-Power auctions each year, one held in January and one held in July. But also, there is the opportunity to take your project to market between those times, running alongside the e-Rock auction. I'll just give you a quick word about the e-Rock auction. The e-Rock auction is held monthly. It's a monthly auction of just rocks alone. It was launched in 2002 and has now sold over 10 million rocks. Of course, you need to know about this if you have rocks to sell separately. But the e-Power auctions that are run alongside, the e-Power auctions run alongside the e-Rock auctions have been just as competitive as the main January and July e-Power auctions. So you have that opportunity to take your project to market at any month in the year. So who can use e-Power? Well, basically, any renewable generator that's able to benefit from selling their power on a short-term basis can participate. These could be renewable obligation generators, either selling their power along with the rocks or separately from the rocks. Could be ex-NOFO generators. Indeed, any renewable generator that's not tied into a long-term PPA. Feed-in tariff generators can sell their export via the e-Power auction. Whether they wish to do that is a separate matter. The price, the administered export price they currently get is fairly favourable, but we do have a number of fit generators on the auction, as you will see. So what do we have auctioned today? We've got 61 participating renewable energy projects, and that accounts for a total of 327 megawatts of capacity. Now, of that 320 megawatts, roughly half and half is split between NOFO contracts and what we call the commercial contracts. The NOFO contracts are those generators who are still operating under contracts that were let some years ago under the previous renewable energy policy. They have to use the e-Power auction to sell their output. The commercial contracts, on the other hand, have elected voluntarily to use e-Power. And of those commercial contracts, we have a number of ex-NOFO contracts who have decided to remain with e-Power once their NOFO contract has finished. We have 4 renewable obligation generators and 8 feed-in tariff generators. And these are the projects broken down by technology. You'll see we have 8 hydro projects, 17 landfill gas, 4 energy from waste, etc. Don't forget, you will be sent these slides after the webinar. So breaking down the projects in the auction today in terms of capacity, we have 55 megawatts of landfill gas, 107 of energy from waste, etc., etc. Now, over time, the number of NOFO contracts using the auction has declined, which is entirely unsurprising because these NOFO contracts are coming to the end of their life. On the other hand, the number of commercial users of e-power is steadily rising, and more are coming on month by month. So in terms of the actual total number of commercial projects using e-power, that's a total of 69, around of which half are in the auction today and half are already enjoying the benefits of the PPA that they won in a previous auction. This is the technology breakdown in terms of number of the projects. And you'll see there a very even spread of different renewable generating technologies. And this is the same number of total projects split by capacity. Right, so let's take up the first of our looks into the auction that's happening today. Here we are. Right, so here I've sorted, let's sort the project by technology. So you'll see here we have the 3 anaerobic digestion projects. I'm pleased to say one of those has already been sold and the others are still being bid on. We have the hydro projects, and you'll see here the information about the project. This means it's a commercial project. Looking at this one, if we look at the information here for this particular project, this is a project which is on an offer at the moment. That NOFO will expire at the end of the year, and then it will become a commercial contract. So we'll come back into the auction later, but I just wanted to show you that these are the projects. We're looking here at the auction through the special webinar window, which has anonymized the project for commercial confidentiality. If you participate in the e-power auction, you will have your own window and you can see how your project is faring in the auction. Each supplier also has their own viewing window, and suppliers can only see the projects that they are entitled to bid on. So as a generator, there's a large number of things you can choose about how you come into the auction, and one of them is which suppliers you would like to be able to bid for your project. If for any reason there's a supplier that you don't want participating in the auction for your project, you can specify that. Right, let's go back into the PowerPoint. So today we have 18 licensed electricity suppliers who are participating in the auction, active right now. And electricity suppliers like the e-power auction because there are low transaction costs, low administration costs. They like it because of the administrative convenience. They will receive one invoice for the entire portfolio of renewable generators with whom they contract following the auction. Very convenient for them. It's a contract as well that they are totally familiar with. Many of them have been using it for years and years. All the information that they have, they know where to find it. It's all in one place. And another feature of e-power is that suppliers that are entering the market for the first time find this is a good way of amassing a portfolio of renewable energy generators to enter the market with. Now, it's a very competitive auction. This time last year, we saw an average of 11 bids per project across all suppliers. Now, they have there's a huge spreadsheet. In fact, I think it has 40 columns of information giving them everything they need to know. You'll see here from the MPAN number, grid supply point group, etc., how their triads are dealt with. That information is available to suppliers in advance of the auction, and they study that carefully, form their bidding strategies. They also have information on the performance of every single project in the auction. They have half-hourly data, and as well as seeing it in terms of every half hour for every day for 365 days a year, they also have that information graphically. You can see here. So that shows how the plant is performing in comparison, how its load factor is varying compared with the average summer load factor in this case. The suppliers also have information about any unexpected performance. You see here, this particular project, its output has dipped right down, but the suppliers know why that happened, because there was a burst pipe and it needed repair. So it's important to keep your suppliers informed about how things are going on, and it's important to keep ePower informed, so that if there's anything that they need to know, it won't make that project look less attractive from the supplier's point of view. Here we have another example. This is an energy from waste project, and there was a session of maintenance, and the supplier was advised in advance that maintenance would happen. Okay, so we've looked at the projects in the auction. Now let's go and have a talk about how the bidding process itself works. Right, I'm going to sort these projects now in terms of the commercial projects and then the NOFO projects. So here, let's sort them by expiry time. Now, the ePower auction doesn't work like eBay. Basically, there is a 2-hour bidding window. So instead of like eBay, where the bids hot up as the hammer comes down, with the ePower auction, there is a 2-hour bidding window. And if a supplier has bid and then no other supplier outbids them within 2 hours, the hammer will come down and that contract will be awarded to that supplier. If they are outbid before that 2 hours is up, then the clock is started again, and other suppliers again have 2 hours in which to outbid that supplier. They start at 9 o'clock in the morning and they finish at 5, and that 2-hour window just stops still until the next morning. So if a bid comes in at say 5 minutes to 5, then the clock stops, and next morning, 9 o'clock, those suppliers participating will have 1 hour and 55 minutes in which to place a bid. So I hope that's clear. Okay, so here we see the projects in order of the time remaining in that 2-hour window. So the one at the top here has just been bid on, this wind project, and as we scroll down to the bottom, we'll see time elapsing. I'll go down to the one that's next likely to have a hammer come down. Here we have a project here, this AD project, 5 minutes 5 seconds to go on that project, and if no other bid comes in, that contract will be awarded for 4.9 pence a kilowatt hour. Now, I should say that these projects, some are selling their power and their ROCs together, some are just selling their power, some are feed-in tariff projects just selling their export. So you have to be careful when you look at the prices here. But there is a great deal of information you can get, and I'll talk about the Cornwall Energy reports in a moment, which give the analysis for you. So I think I've explained about the bidding process. As ever, type in any questions if you have anything you want to ask. So I'll now go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So what you need to know as a generator is that if you participate in the ePower auction, a great deal of hassle is taken out of the process for you. And you can be assured of getting the best price on the day. This is a very competitive auction, an average of around 10 bids per project. You can set your own reserve price. You will get information in advance about suggested reserve prices, and those are individual for each individual generator, because depending on the nature of your feed-in tariff or your ROC status, but also very importantly your GGUOS charges, that bid price, that reserve price will be specific to you. You can enter the process at fairly short notice, but as I said earlier, it's advisable to get in there in good time so that the suppliers can have a good look at your project and can work out their bidding strategy. You can say when you want your contract to start. You can say the duration. You have a choice of 6 months or 12 months. I mentioned the reserve price you can set. And you can choose which month to go to auction, but you cannot choose the actual day. I mentioned the viewing window. You can watch your project in the auction. And I mentioned the viewing windows that suppliers use. The fee for using the e-power auction is £1 a megawatt hour, and that is subject to a minimum of £200 a month for renewables obligation projects and £50 a month for feed-in tariff projects, which is a fee that compares very favourably with other routes to market, which typically cost around £2 per megawatt hour. So why is it so popular? Well, it isn't easy getting the best price power purchase agreement. You have 3 choices really as a renewable generator. You can undertake the process yourself, and you can go around negotiating with each or a number of licensed electricity suppliers. That's really something which you have to be very clued up to do, and so some people may choose to have an agent doing that for them. The important thing is to make sure you're comparing apples with apples, etc. And there are lots of terms and lots of details to look at. And the third route, of course, is the e-power auction. You get near to full market value with e-power, and I'll show you statistics in a minute. And the contract itself is very beneficial to generators on account of its legacy. Now, I won't go into great detail here, but the contract originated when NOFO generators had to change their contracts or have their contracts changed, and so there was a large number of renewable generators who had to be represented fairly in the process of renegotiating these contracts. I was involved at that at the time in the early noughties, 2000 odd, and we did get a good deal for the generators. The contract covers all exported power and embedded benefits. It has very good cash flow benefits, and because they are so good, I want to actually show these to you. This is the e-power auction, the e-power site. We're looking, there's the auction, this is the website itself. To take you to the section resources, you'll see the timetable here. Let's look at the current timetable. Now, in this month, July 2016, suppliers will send e-power their half-hourly data on the 5th, or by the 5th of August. By the 10th of August, generators are sent an invitation to invoice e-power for their output. And then generators have until the 23rd of August to get that invoice raised. And then they will be paid by the 26th of August. That's the target date for generation from this month. And that is, so it's the end of the month following generation. And as you see here, that's before ROCs have even been issued by Ofgem for that generation. So that is an extremely good cash flow benefit. And the other thing to note is that this is all of the revenue for the project. It covers any value for ROCs, any value for recycling benefit. It's all wrapped up into one payment. So you can really do your financial planning carefully, and it helps you do it accurately. Where to find the e-power timetable on the e-power website. So it's a simple single price, and the bidder, the supplier, takes 100% of the offtake and all of the imbalance risk, and all billing and settlement needs are taken care of. Really, e-power does hold your hand as a renewable generator, and this is good for the small generators and also for the very sophisticated generators who've been using the e-power auction for years. It's a very comprehensive service. Evidence of its popularity, those independent generators who had NOFO contracts, the vast majority of them stay with e-power once their NOFO contract has come to an end. And those independent generators, i.e. not linked to a supply company, that go off and try other methods, 90% of them tend to come back and then use the auction in the future. So every main auction, i.e. every January and every July auction, Cornwall Energy writes a report analysing how things have gone. These are the typical benchmark values. These are the upper values that can be gained from each revenue component for the power generation, and it shows you here that it's GGWOS charges that can that vary the most. I would like to mention, so ePower will send in advance of the auction the process of setting a default reserve price, which is specific for each generator, and that's when you as a generator get the option of specifying your own price if you are not happy with the default reserve price. So looking at how generators perform, how near maximum value they get, this is the January auction, and 65% of generators got 95 to 100% of the value, and some even got more than that. One even got more than 105% of the theoretical value. How different technologies performed, you'll generally find that the predictable baseload technologies such as anaerobic digestion, landfill gas, energy from waste, tend to command nearer the higher end of these values, whereas the intermittent technologies are a little bit less. But overall, for these technologies, as the Cornwall Energy analysis shows, the ePower auction is a very good way of getting the best price. So, just to summarise things, 20 suppliers regularly take part in the ePower auction. Average is 10 bids per site. This squeezes out the best price that a generator is going to get on the day. It's a live dynamic process rather than a static tender process. And it's supplier friendly too. The suppliers are familiar with the auction format, they're familiar with the power purchase agreement itself. They really like receiving one single invoice for their entire portfolio of renewable generation sites, and it's an easy way to achieve a balance and lower your imbalance risk if you purchase a wide portfolio of projects. So actually being small as a renewable generator, which can be a disadvantage if you're footing it round the different suppliers, negotiating your own contracts, being small through ePower is a virtue, not a disadvantage. So this is an extract from the conclusion of the Cornwall Energy report on the January auction. I won't read every word of this. The point they make is that with the markets changing now, generators have valued the flexibility that ePower offers in terms of choosing when they go to market and choosing the duration of the contract, etc. And the second paragraph, it does point out that the performance of commercial sites in the auction showed that the value shares retained by generators remain towards the upper end when compared with those other routes to market that Cornwall Energy is familiar with. And there you have the link to the report here, so you can read that in full. It's a very thorough analysis. In terms of getting started and where to find things on the ePower website, if you want to use ePower, you sign an agreement with ePower to say that they can auction your power for you. You fill out a simple facility information form, getting those key bits of information about your project. And I showed you the vast amount of data, including all the half-hourly data. Once you've signed up once, that is automatically uploaded onto the ePower auction platform each time. So this is really a one-off thing that you do at the beginning. And I've showed you the timetables. Right. This is hosted by the Renewable Energy Association. The REA is a trade body representing the renewables industry, covering power, heat, transport and renewable gas. should you wish to become a member of the REA, the membership team will be happy to speak with you, and you have their email address and their telephone number. Right. Now, thank you very much for participating. We have had Stuart Stevens looking at the questions as they've come in, if indeed any have, during the course of this webinar. And I'm now going to go over to Stuart Stevens to invite him to make any comments and answer any questions.
The question was, are payments guaranteed in any way from the supplier, and do we know who the counterparty is? The brief answer to that is that it's the ePower PPA that you're entering into. So just like with any PPA, being a legal contract, there is recourse there if payment wasn't made. However, the comfort I can give is that there has never been an issue of non-payment for generators that have taken part in our ePower auction for the commercial contracts. The other thing that's very positive here is that you as the generator, we would send you a list of the 17, 18, 19 or 20 odd suppliers who take part in our ePower auction, and you would also be able to let us know if there were any of those suppliers who you didn't want to bid on your site if you had a credit risk particular profile that you required. We also only allow suppliers to take part in the commercial auction who have got at least a 12-month billing and settlement track record with. Another question we've got here is, can you give us some insight into who the buyers are, Big Six, power providers, etc.? The question says. Yes, I can answer that. The Big Six are bidders in this auction, and as are a number of other large electricity suppliers, perhaps operating in the business-to-business sphere, and also a number of the smaller suppliers, new entrants into the market that may not have been around quite so long. So really it's absolutely across the gambit, the parties that take part. That's all the questions I've had so far. What I would do in the next few days is everybody that took part and listened in on the webinar and watched the webinar, we will send out a link to it, and you'll have my contact details there. And if you do have any further questions that you might have, then please let me know. The auction today is going very well, and all of the sites are bid on, and there's been some quite competitive bidding again today. So we're pleased with how things have gone, and I hope you found it useful. And Gaynor, thank you ever so much for doing such a great job running through the presentation and the auction there.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Yes, and we will, when we send out the PDF of the slides and the link to where you could watch the webinar again, we'll also encourage people to sign up to the ePower newsletter, where you'll get information about the final results of this auction, and that will keep you abreast of other important things in the power market. Right. Thank you very much to everybody who's participated, and we will run this webinar again 6 months' time, and we look forward to having some of you back again. Thank you.